Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the May 17th meeting of the Hyde Park Planning Board. Please take note of the exits around the room and now join me as we salute the Stars and Stripes. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Before we begin, a quick housekeeping note. I think maybe you can hear that we have new microphones. I want to salute and thank the Media Committee, particularly Herb and Barb Sweet, for all the years of televising these planning board meetings. I think it's been in the 7 or 8 years since they were doing this. I can only recall one meeting that they missed in all that time, which is fantastic. So it's a great service to the community. I also want to thank the town board for deciding to hire a company to televise both our meetings and the town board meetings, and maybe even the ZBA, we'll see. That noted, the first item on the agenda, a second item, I want to congratulate Mr. Murphy, our colleague, for receiving a Hyde Park Visual Environment Committee Beautification Award for his residence. People who don't know what these are, the Visual Environment Committee every other year does a survey and gives awards to residences, businesses, landscapes, signage, going green, a variety of categories to help celebrate what's kind of new and good around the town. And Mr. Murphy, they redid their house after the fire and did a fantastic job, and he was recognized. And that's right, our recused member for the moment, Mr. Pickett, got a landscaping award. I forgot. I watched this on television. Proving that your board members walk the walk as well as talk the talk, I guess. That noted.
Mr. Dupree, can I make one comment?
Please.
So, Herb and Barbara Sweet.
Yes.
I think I will miss most their dinging us when we are not speaking into the mics. This new company has broad shoulders and has much to carry on with.
There you go. Thank you. Making a motion to reopen the public hearing for Town Center North.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We just have I would normally go through exactly what the applicants are proposing, but this is a long gestating project, and I think we're near the end. So I think we're just going to discuss some final details, but briefly, they're seeking to convert what we call the former Malloy's. It's an empty building that's been empty at least 10 years into a Mavis. The new structure is on the right. Of note, 5 bays face the east and 2 bays face north, containing all sound within the site. At the last meeting, we gave them a negative declaration under seeker. And they're before the ZBA seeking 2 variances. And then as soon as you're done with that, we'll be, I think, closing the public hearing and considering final approval. Meantime, Ms. Leibold, update us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I simply wanted to come back tonight because we had deferred the public hearing to this evening when we were kind of a dart at the wall trying to figure out where we were going to be. But I'm happy to be here just to provide an update with the status of the project. So some of the notable items that were discussed at the last meeting that we're working on, and we will provide you with a submission on May 24th for the June 7th hearing. So if we can get it to you earlier, we will. So you can start reviewing some of those changes. But some of the things we spoke about were the cupolas. So we did speak to the architect. I put on my, what do I want to call it, my protective gear when I spoke to him. But they are drafting up an elevation showing the cupolas. I'll say cupola parenthesis S. So we're leaving it up to him to decide how he wants to add it. We're working on some of the turning radiuses for Pine Woods and Route 9. Of course, the radius on Route 9 is subject to DOT, and they could certainly modify it after we've given it to them, but we're working on trying to make some changes to that as well, which may shave off a little bit of the corner of the park, but we'll implement that. And then, of course, with Pine Woods, we're working on making sure that truck turning radius, I feel like I would get pinged right now because I'm so quiet. The truck turning radius, we're working on the truck turning radius from Pine Woods Road. And some of the other ancillary notes, we did get a site plan memo from the town engineer from Morris Associates, so we're working on making those changes as well. And again, all of those documents will be sent to you on the 24th, and hopefully they'll be the subject of your review on the 7th.
Thank you. Just briefly, we also received back a response from Dutchess County Planning since the project had changed substantially enough. We re-referred it. Of note, Ms. Lavarnway expressed some concerns about the noise impact study, so I forwarded it to our own sound engineer, Mr. Schmidt, who gave us a response. But if I can summarize it, it was basically that Ms. Lavarnway was questioning whether the increase in decibels also accounted for the percussive nature of the sound, the impact wrenches. And if I'm correct on this, and I believe I am, the nature of the gun that was used does test specifically for percussive sounds. That was the problem with the first study. And unless you are really immersed into the details of sound engineering, you're not going to know that necessarily. So I think that that was something that she missed. But we also had the response, from, as I said, from Mr. Schmidt saying, no, we were correct to do the neg deck. Her other items were smaller, one of which was she just had some questions about landscaping, and I told her that had already changed based on an offline meeting we had. So I think we're okay to proceed forward. Any comments from the consultants, Mr. Sotero?
No.
Ms. Polidoro?
No.
Any comments from the board, Ms. Kane?
Looking forward to seeing the draft with the cupolas, so we can consider those. But other than that, no, I'm really happy with how things have moved along.
Thank you. Mr. Murphy?
No comment.
Mr. Waters?
Thank you.
Because this is the cupola guy, as well as Ms. Dexter. Ms. Dexter?
Thank you so much for taking that forward, and I'm really looking forward to seeing it.
Mr. Oliver?
No comment.
Ms. DiNapoli?
No comment.
Thank you. So, yes.
I'm sorry, if I could, I just don't want to forget the fire chief. I just want to make sure everyone knows,
Oh, right.
provided me with a comment letter.
Yep.
We have been discussing the project offline and have had agreements with respect to fire suppression and so forth. So I just wanted to let you know that he did provide me, which I expected his comment letter tonight. So we'll take this into consideration and try to get
You're
these.
okay with it?
Yeah, we've
Good.
been, he essentially put in paper what
Yeah,
we've been
yeah.
discussing.
Could you
So,
Seemed reasonable to me.
We have it.
Oh, we do?
yeah.
It was submitted. It was
As
just
for the
submitted.
board, what everyone, so you know what
Yeah.
we've agreed to. So
Yeah.
obviously, we've agreed to the Knox box, which we would always do. But with respect to the fire suppression, we have agreed to put the fire suppression system over the tire storage area and the bays. So there would
Yeah.
be some fire suppression, whether dry or wet. The office is ancillary, but those areas they've agreed to the fire suppression. So
Good.
he memorialized that in a letter.
Great.
Good, that's good.
Thank you for working together offline productively. Anything else?
Just to let Victoria know that we've drafted an access easement agreement. We just haven't shared it with you yet because we just want to get the schedule right as to exactly what it's going to encompass. So I'm talking to all the consultants as to whether access really, means vehicular and pedestrian, and does that include the speed tables? Do we need to include the sidewalks and things of that? So we're just trying to draw the right bubble around it, and then we'll get it to you. I don't think the verbiage is going to change. It would just get the schedule right, and then we'll get you meets and bounds to go with it.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Alexander. I'll conclude by just noting that there, as Ms. Leibelt noted, we have a new Morse Associates memo. It itemized several things. I know that you're going through that to make a response. Of note, item number 5 was adding a sidewalk on the north side of the new entry and exit to Route 9 that would be to more easily have pedestrians access the beautiful new park and garden where the clock's going to be as well. And Ms. Leibelt indicated they're already taking care of that, et cetera. To discuss the radius a little bit more, I believe that Mr. Sotero noted that they had used a WD-40. We need a WD-50, which has to do with wheel length and size of the
WB.
truck. WB, there we
That's
are.
10 more Ds?
Oh, D, right. That's that spray, is
I know what you meant. I know what you meant.
wheelbase as opposed to wheel depth, I guess, yes. At any rate, anything else from anyone? Making a motion to adjourn this to the June 7th meeting.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll see you back then. Thank you. Good luck before the ZBA.
Thank you.
I think everything's going well there. Good.
Let you know. Thank you.
And thank you for coming in. Mr. Pickett is now back, and our alternate, Mr. Waters, is now recused for the rest of the evening. The next item on the agenda is Small World. The applicant is seeking a special use permit and site plan application to rebuild a burnt structure at 80 West Dorsey Lane. Because this is a non-conforming site, it's got more density than what is allowed. It requires a public hearing. Making a motion to reopen the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. So the purpose of these public hearings is so that we can sometimes find new information. And at the last meeting, a neighbor, Ms. Polanska, next door, indicated that she thought the septic tank was on her property, and lo and behold,
It was.
Wow.
sorry.
News to all of us.
So we've received new plans that indicate where the septic will be dug up and removed is going to be, which is actually underneath the driveway essentially. We still have on the newest set of plans that there's an approximate side of the septic is still indicated in the back, and that's where the laterals are.
Correct.
Which they won't know unless they dig everything up. And we had a last-minute comment from Mr. Sotero today regarding the size of the tank. It was in the latest plans you've all had a chance to see. It said they were just going to use the same size tank because it was in good shape. But Mr. Sotero, in an abundance of caution, thought we might want to have that so that it's whatever DCWWA specifies.
All right, now, if I may, Mr. Sotero, just so you know, it's not a 4-bedroom house. What's there now is 7 bedrooms. There's four in the front, and the structure in the front has 4 bedrooms, and the one in the back has 3 existing.
Ah,
So it's technically the septic tank is handling 7 bedrooms.
okay. Well,
I just wanted to clarify that based on your
I didn't
email.
know that. I thought each house.
No, they share a septic.
bedroom.
They share a septic.
Well, I guess good luck with that with the health department.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fun, yeah. So I guess that's something just gonna have to deal with the health department. So as long as we put that note that the size is based on the health department, and I think we also clarified in here that we wanted an as-built sketch of it as one of the conditions.
Yeah, that's no problem at all. I mean, we'll deal with the health department, and if they want to split it into 2 separate tanks, I mean, we certainly can. Doesn't seem to make a lot of sense, but we could.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll have to see what they say.
Any other comments?
No.
And Mr. Bird, I didn't mean to cut you off with
Oh,
my
it's okay.
palaver. Would you like to add anything?
No, I mean, we found the septic tanks on the neighbor's property. She's correct. So I did, after Mr. Sotero left, I did have a conversation with her from when we were out there on site. She came out afterwards, and I explained to her what was going on, and I asked her if she wanted us, if it came to find out that the existing septic line is on her property, does she want us to remove it or just abandon it? And she said to just abandon it because she didn't want her lawn
Less
dug up.
disruption.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
less disruption. Okay.
So I did ask her what she wanted us to do, and and explained to her the what would happen if it was dug up. And obviously we'd be digging through her yard and with the backhoe, and it would become a little bit of a disaster.
Right.
So I gave her the option, and she was okay with just abandoning it in place because they never use that part of the yard. But she
hope
didn't want
it's
to see
not
it dug
there.
up.
Let's hope it's not there.
What is the current tank made out of?
Concrete.
Oh, it is a concrete tank, okay.
How did you find it?
Well, we knew where the lid was, but we didn't know the direction. We knew where the cleanout was, which happens to be right in the center. So we assumed that it was facing lengthwise, but it's on a diagonal. So it was kind of a, once they started digging, because, the guy that pumps
following
it, he had he had his own thought on where it was. Property manager had his thought on where it was. So we had 3 different opinions on where it was, and then when we actually exposed the entire top of the tank, nobody was right.
And will you be draining the tank, I'm assuming?
Oh,
and filling
absolutely.
it?
Yeah,
I know
we-
it's a basic question, but
Yeah, in order to move the tank, we have to pump it out, whether we just pick it up, relocate it, or we have to replace it. Because we're going to put the new tank back in the relative same location. Given where the pipes are coming from the house in the back. The house in the front, obviously, we could put the pipe anywhere. But where the pipe's coming out of the house in the back, we don't want to really have to start digging that up and messing with that one.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Any comments from you, Victoria?
Yes, so normally, we make Department of Health approval a condition of getting a signature on the site plan. In this case, because the applicant is in a rush to get this constructed, he's requested that the board move Department of Health approval to be a condition of CO, partly because the Department of Health is somewhat backed up and it will take a few months to get that approval. So right now, the resolution is drafted to make Department of Health approval a condition of a CO, but before they can sign the plans, they're required to submit the application to the Department of Health to get that process started. Also, it currently says that there should be restoration of the former location of the septic tank. So I know you dug it up, just show on the plans or indicate what you've done to seed, mulch, and restore that area. So there are a few conditions that we'll go through, but the Department of Health is probably the most important. The others are the same as last time we saw this resolution.
A quick point, condition 6, because of the way Mr. Sotero's email was worded, it says revision of the site plan set to indicate the new water line will meet DCWWA authority specifications for the total number of bedrooms proposed. Pete, were you referring, is that the way you want that condition to read?
That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Isn't it Department of Health?
This is for the water line. There's going to be a new water line coming
okay.
in. And then also I want to just for the record state that Ms. Moss is fine with the way the conditions were worded. There was a little bit of back and forth before I went to LA about how to allow this, because remember the way our code works, because this is a non-conforming structure, if the use lapses for more than a year, then it's no longer vested in his rights just to rebuild it. And so we'd like to get this going, and this will enable that to happen. And they're already in the process. Any comments from the board?
No.
Would anyone from the public like to speak about this application? There being none, I get a motion to close the public hearing.
So move. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And who has this resolution?
Me. Resolution number 2017-09A. Whereas, now therefore be resolved that the planning board hereby adopts a negative declaration determining that project will not result in any significant adverse environmental impacts and that a draft environmental impact statement would not be prepared. Be it further resolved that the planning board grants site plan and special use permit approval to the project as shown on the site plan set and authorizes its chair or his designee to sign the site plan set after compliance with the following conditions. 1. Payment of all fees and escrow. 2. Revision of site plan set to label the front and rear buildings as Building 1 and Building 2, respectively, consistent with the zoning table. 3. Revision of the site plan set to include the owner's signature block and planning board signature block. 4. Revision of the site plan set to show the removal of an old septic tank and installation of a new tank and relocated distribution line to the existing leach field. The revisions shall include restoration of the former location of the septic tank. 5. Submission of a SAN-36 to the Department of Health. 6. Revision of the site plan to indicate that the new water line will meet Dutchess County Water and Wastewater Authority specifications for the total number of bedrooms proposed. Be further resolved that before a certificate of occupancy can be issued for the project, the applicant must provide the zoning administrator with the following. 1. Evidence of the Department of Health approval of the new septic tank and distribution line relocation. 2. Submission of an as-built survey showing the location of the installed septic tank and distribution line.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
The motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for your forbearance, and it was wonderful working with you. We get to work again.
I appreciate it. You will, because we have another project starting up soon.
Really?
Yes. On Violet Avenue.
Commercial or
Yes, both.
Oh, okay, great.
That's fantastic. Look, we're all grinning up here for you then. That's wonderful.
It's another one with Mr. Small. It's the old TNT property.
Oh, nice. That'll be so nice to have that
Oh,
redeveloped.
yeah.
Have you had your meeting yet with Ms. Moss?
I've had it, Mr. Small and I had it a while ago with her.
Okay, that's great. Looking forward to having you back then.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Doing well. Thank you for your time on this matter.
Of course.
I told him already that he better.
The next item on the agenda is a new public hearing for what has been known as Carriage Trail at Town Center, as well as Crofton Mews. The applicants are seeking an extension of time in which to complete substantial construction. For those who have been watching our planning board meetings for a while, this is the big project that is located behind the Moose Club off 9G. May I get a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
We've received the note from the representative from the bank who foreclosed on this property. They are essentially, it's still on the market. I do want to let everyone know that I did get a phone call from the Realtor, and there's an accepted offer on this site. Tad has spoken, I believe, to the individual who's interested in purchasing the property, and he wants to turn it into, I believe, assisted living. So I anticipate that at some point they'll be back for site plan amendment, because as it's proposed or approved right now, I should say, it's a series of two-story buildings with outdoor staircases, and I don't think that that's very assisted living-y sounding. So, but in the interim, in order to not lose their approval, they're merely asking for the extension. So, would anyone like to speak about this application from the public? Any comments from the consultants? Any comments from the book? Come on up. Come on up, please. We always care.
Yes, I believe you correctly predicted I would be here a year from today. I didn't doubt you when you made the prediction, so I wanted to make your prophecy fulfilled. Yeah, for those of you who don't remember me, I was here a year ago. I'm the broker representing Key Bank's interest in the property. You nicely extended the approvals a year ago, and we're seeking that again. And Mr. Dupree is correct. We do have an accepted offer. Obviously, this party is very, very well aware they would have to come back before your board for whatever changes they make. We're simply seeking an approval for what?
Right, and I'll note, I note that I didn't receive the phone call from you about the accepted offer, but rather from the seller's broker.
Buyer's broker.
Buyer's broker, sorry, you're the seller, right, sorry. That didn't deputy tonight. At any rate, yes, so again, he was a bit vague when he said assisted living. That's an amorphous term that can mean lots of different things. So, but as approved, I can't imagine that you'd have 70 or 80-year-olds who need help.
I can't speak for the buyer, but
Right.
I agree with your assumption that they're going to come back and look for some form of a change.
Okay, congratulations, by the way, on moving it finally.
You know, that
You're not going to speak until
you used,
the omelet's made?
I'm very impressed by your terminology, which was correct. We have an accepted offer. Does not mean we have a signed purchase and sale agreement. So, are we in agreement? Yes. Do we have a bunch of yards to go down the football field? Yes, we do.
Yeah, we're all aware of what closings are like, particularly one that might be this complicated because it's a big site, et cetera.
It's a bank.
I will let you know, I know the buyer's attorney is looking for a no objection letter from the town. But without knowing what the proposal is, the planning board is not going to be able to issue that. So
I think if I
you may want to talk to them and
don't think it's a no objection. I think what they're looking to do, I talked to Tad Moss the other day. It was her usual helpful self. So assisted living in and of itself doesn't exist in your zoning.
but we have similar terms.
Right, but you can kind of slice it. It can be in this bucket here and this bucket here with a special permit and this bucket here with something else. So
It depends if it's medical or not, basically.
right. So we're trying to, not a no objection letter, but a, hey, if it's defined as such, it's allowed in the neighborhood core zone. That's all we're looking for.
Well-
So that the buyer knows that they can do that form of a project in this zone.
What we
That make a little better sense to you?
yes,
Yeah, but I mean,
She still looks
also-
like she doubts me.
Well, we just hesitate to give those letters because sure they may be able to do the use, but then they also have to meet dimensional regulations, and it's hard to say.
You're not granting site plan approval with that letter.
I'm just letting you know that it's going to be worded in a vague manner.
I fully expect it will be.
What we suggested, Ms. Moss and I, was that they have a pre-app meeting with the two of us.
Great.
And just maybe fill in a little bit more details about what they were proposing.
Okay.
Again, just assisted living can mean a lot of different things. And
A lot of different things.
Tad and I have conferred a lot about this as well, because I spoke to the buyer's broker about an hour. He's a former supervisor, I believe, of another town, and served on planning. That's you. Nice to meet you. I served on planning board as well, Mr. Flood.
Yeah.
So if we could, Tad and I would have an easier time proceeding forward if we knew
Sure.
more of what an idea he has
Okay.
there. But yes, in general, the use is allowed in the area, so
Right.
that's how vague it could be, in other words. But we would happy to work for you,
Thank you.
with you, I should say. The area looks like a lunar landscape. It was disturbed a long time ago. No one in the town wants to see it just sitting here in that strange half, stage. So, any other comments from anyone? There being no other comments, making a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
And who has this resolution? Thank you.
Resolution to grant 12-month extension time to complete construction, Carriage Trail at Town Center. Resolution number 16-96GH, and it's whereas times 18, does that count?
You don't even have to say that. You can just go right to the
Right.
therefore be it resolved.
Now therefore be it resolved that pursuant to section 108-9.6A of the code, the planning board hereby grants a 12-month extension of the time in which the applicant must complete construction to and including July 7th, 2018. Be it further resolved that if and when agreement with Dutchess County Water and Wastewater Authority is reached relating to the water line, all legal agreements and/or documents created in connection with the agreement shall be submitted to the town attorney and planning board attorney for approval. And 2, before a building permit may be issued for any improvements to the property, the applicant shall submit a letter of credit or other equivalent security to the amount approved by the planning board upon the recommendation of the town engineer, subject to review by the town attorney as to form, sufficiency, and manner of execution. And 3, before a building permit may be issued for any improvements on the property, the applicant shall repair and reinstall all blanding turtle mitigation measures. And 4, no building permit shall be issued until the applicant has submitted an updated SWPPP,
Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan.
to the town, which is acceptable to the planning board engineer and stormwater management officer, and has applied for a local stormwater permit. And 5, no certificate of occupancy for the last completed structure on the site shall be issued until an as-built survey has been submitted to the zoning administrator. There will be no written or verbal notification from the planning board office to the applicant at such time as the extension expires. Any request for an extension of the deadline set forth herein must be submitted to the planning board at least 30 days in advance of said dates.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Good luck.
Thank
with
you
the rest of the
very,
team.
very much.
And as I said, anytime, Tad and I routinely have these offline meetings to kind of help advance and at the very beginning to front load it. So anytime that the prospective new owner would like to come in, we'd be happy to meet. Okay, thank you.
Hi, Bill. Good seeing you.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is a workshop item for Hyde Park Fire and Water District. Mr. Brenner and Chief Davis are here representing the applicants. To remind everyone, we held a public hearing and we extended the day in which we could receive written comments. Briefly, the applicants are seeking to erect a sign that is non-code compliant and actually specifically barred by our code because a portion of it is internally lit, what is called a digital reader board. In the interim, both of their attorney and our attorney have done some negotiating back and forth to look into some cases. At the last public hearing, we actually did what's called a Monroe-style hearing, where we looked and evaluated, thank you, different criteria as established from, I believe it's County of Monroe versus City of Rochester, where there are differing governmental jurisdictions. Just in sort of late-breaking news, Victoria and Mr. Brenner consulted and realized that there might be a way to consider this as part of seeker because it feels like that there's a resolution, and so it feels like there's a decision coming. So we asked the applicants to fill out a short form EAF. They did. It's been submitted. Obviously, it's just for a small sign, which we would, in the resolutions we would be considering tonight, we do undertake a negative declaration about it if we find through the Monroe balancing formula that they are exempted from our zoning for the specific reasons of the digital supply of emergency information. Let me turn it over to you. Do you want to add anything there?
Sure. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Board. Robert Brenner from the law firm Nixon Peabody, again here on behalf of the applicant. I don't want to rehash everything we discussed at the last meeting. I'd be happy to address any lingering concerns that there are. But just to catch everyone up, after that April 5 meeting, we submitted a letter outlining the self-imposed conditions that we discussed at that meeting by the deadline that was imposed upon us. I think it was April 14. Subsequent to that, after the town attorney reviewed our proposed self-imposed limiting conditions, we received an email asking for further modifications. I took those back to the district and we submitted an updated letter a few days after that. I think it was April 28th, in connection with certain self-imposed limiting conditions. I can go through them. They essentially mirror exactly what was discussed based on your comments and concerns at the April 5 meeting. And I just want to say, I think this process has worked the way that the Court of Appeals intended it to work. It's really been a give and take. The alternative here was that the district could have done what some other entities have done in town and put the sign up, and it would have been a sign maybe that folks weren't happy with in town. And what we've done here is we're now at a position where the district can erect a sign that it itself isn't 100% happy with, but it's a compromised position based on the negotiations that we've had with the town under in Ray County of Monroe. So I think it's really worked out the way that the court intended it to work out. And again, this is just a replacement in kind. Every condition in the town zoning regulations is complied with the exception of the internally illuminated provisions. We've revised the sign to make sure that it's compliant. We've also gone so far, as I mentioned at the last meeting, to combine tax parcels to accommodate this project. So this has really been a 2-year undertaking to try to get to this point tonight. And again, I'd respectfully request that you find this proposal acceptable and allow it to proceed.
Thank you for that summation. And just for the record, I believe everyone has had a chance to take a look at the memorandum of understanding. The final one is submitted. This was sent digitally a while back. So, Victoria, any comments from you before I begin with the board?
No comments. I mean, it's up to the board how they want to act tonight. We've prepared findings for your consideration.
Mm-hmm. And did I just get the newest resolution, I hope? Yes?
We could get the EAF out of the way. And normally, just for the board's edification, the reason we don't normally do EAFs on signs is that they're type 2 if they're smaller than 4,000 square feet, but they're only type 2 when they comply with the zoning law. In this case, this one does not comply, so we're moving forward with seeker.
So let's do a part 2 real quickly. I'll read it out, the questions out loud. Will the proposed action create a material conflict with adopted land use plan or zoning regulations? Fellow board members, we can either have a no or small impact or moderate to large impact. This does create a conflict, but do you feel like it's material? I mean, to me, it's not.
No.
Thank you. The proposed action result in a change in the use or the intensity of the use of land? No, because it's going to remain the exact same. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of the existing community?
Yes.
No.
Let's go through and I heard a yes.
Back to that one, I'm not too sure on that
Will the
one.
proposed action impair the character or quality of the existing community? Ms. Kane votes yes.
Well, it's no or small, so small
Small or
or
no.
large, I guess.
So you would be voting basically small, okay? Everyone small?
Yes, everybody's small.
The proposed action have an impact on the environmental characteristics that cause the establishment of a critical environmental area? No. Will the proposed action result in an adverse change in the existing level of traffic or affect existing infrastructure for mass transit, biking, or walkway?
No.
Will the proposed action cause an increase in the use of energy and it fails to incorporate reasonably available energy conservation or renewable energy opportunities? A slight increase in energy because it's going to be electrified. Will the proposed action impact existing public and water supplies or public and private wastewater treatment utilities?
Probably no.
No to both. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of important historical, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic resources?
No.
No to small?
No.
Sounds acceptable?
Yes.
Thank you. Will the proposed action result in an adverse change in natural resources such as wetlands, water bodies, groundwater, air quality, flora, and fauna? No. Will the proposed action result in an increase in the potential for erosion, flooding, or drainage problems? No. Will the proposed action create a hazard to environmental resources or human health? No. Thank you, and I'll complete part 3 and sign it after the meeting.
Turtle Crossing.
There's a disturbed area there. I don't believe we have that. So, discussion. Ms. Kane, do you want to start? Uh-oh.
I don't know. I'm not sure where to start. I understand that the fire department wants this sign. I appreciate the fact that we've all worked together, and I appreciate the fact that you've met all of the zoning requirements except the internally lit. I have a problem voting for this because the internally lit signs are not allowed anywhere else in town. I do think it changes the character. It's sort of, you know, a creeping, I don't know. It's a step in the wrong direction, I guess is a better way to put it. And I think that the goal of reaching the townspeople in an efficient manner with emergency information, the idea of putting that on a sign, even one that can be remotely programmed to produce that emergency information, I just think that that's very 19th century. I think that relatively few people in town drive past that sign and would see it at the moment, you know, of an emergency. If the weather's really bad, they're not going to be out driving past the sign. If there's an accident someplace in town and a road is closed, maybe they're driving past the sign, maybe they're not. And if they are, maybe they were going that way towards the accident, maybe they're not. I just think it's not the most efficient way to communicate that information. There are so many school districts, fire departments, weather programs where you can do an opt-in. Almost everybody in America these days carries a cell phone that gets text messages. Whether you have a smartphone or not, text messaging is an option. It's very fast and it's very cheap, and it doesn't conflict with our zoning.
Thank you. Mr. Murphy?
I appreciate the compromise that the fire department went through. I appreciate the service that they perform, much of it at no charge with volunteers, and I think that a compromise is called for here. I was one of the people that wrote the ordinance. We probably didn't, look at this kind of a situation that was coming in front of us, perhaps like we might have, but speaking for somebody that helped write the ordinance, I'm comfortable with the compromise.
Thank you. Mr. Pickett?
Yes, you did say this had generator backup that was running out of the standard system, so we're there. And it would have things on it like time and temperature, icy roads, smoke detector battery reminders, fire hazard warnings. Hyde Park is a 911 community, buckle up, drive safe, things like that on it. The only question I had, if the town had a recommendation for something to put on the sign, could we do that from somebody that might be a designee?
Nothing political.
No.
We've said that from the beginning.
I think-
How about consider voting today? No.
Well, actually, the way the MOU is worded, it's limited to district information, local district information, as well as emergency information, rather than patriotic or something like that, maybe.
Right.
So if the
No,
town had emergency information, there's nothing to stop it from consulting with the fire district about that message.
That's correct.
I think we said at the April 5 meeting, as part of this compromise in the process, certainly we'd be amenable to displaying that kind of information.
You did.
Okay. It would be filtered through you. Okay, I'm good with it.
Thank you. Ms. Dexter?
I had a couple questions. So the self-imposed limitations, and if I read it correctly, this is an agreement with the town board, and I'm directing my question to
So
our council.
It would be. The applicant has stated that it's willing to undertake an MOU with the town board, and so these findings are drafted in a way that assumes that they're going to follow through with that, and that they will, in fact, enact that MOU. And if they don't, then the findings are voided because,
Okay.
these are made on that basis.
So let's say that they do go forward with the MOU. Two supervisors from now, they're like, I really want to see all kinds of flashy stuff because I really like flashy stuff and I like to tweet a lot and I like to just, I want to see action. Could they rip this up and
Sure.
tell the fire department, we don't care?
Only if both the parties agree, correct?
They could. I mean, they
Both
could do
parties would
that,
have to
but
agree to it.
technically, that would require them to come back and have another Monroe analysis based on their new restriction list sign,
So technically,
if the town was willing to enforce that. I mean, this is only as good as it can be enforced, and so.
it's basically a gentleman's handshake that could fairly easily be unshook down the road.
Well, to
Yes.
the extent that it's unshaken, they should be required to come back and have another Monroe analysis.
I guess I'm just saying, so if I drive by, 2 years from now and there's just fireworks going off there and, pigs running across going, big barbecue next week. And I come to town hall and I say, I don't think they're supposed to be doing that. And the supervisor says, there's really no way to enforce this.
Well,
I mean,
so that's
literally.
no different, really, than someone putting up an illegal sign and you telling the supervisor and they say, I mean, the town's never required to enforce its zoning law.
Right.
So if they choose not to enforce this, you vote them out of office, the same way.
Okay. And then,
But I would like Mr. Brenner, I mean, what you gave us was, I guess, the workings of an MOU. I would suggest that the MOU itself have an enforcement clause in there so everyone is clear on what to do in the case of a violation. Is it first a notice and then, I'd like to know what happens so we're not arguing about that down the road.
And the other thing I just want to add, I know on April 5, we talked about whether or not we would actually go through this MOU process. And I think it's a belt and suspenders approach, and the MOU stands on its own. But I still think, as I said on April 5, if there's findings in a resolution that this board bases its balancing of public interest test upon, and we violate or don't comply with those findings, MOU signed or not signed, I think it undermines everything that we've gone through for the past 2 years, and it's as if we never did it. So I think the MOU is a great safeguard, but if we're not complying with any conditions that are part of a resolution that this board would approve, I don't think the MOU really matters. I think there's still an enforcement issue because we've offered these self-imposed limiting conditions as an inducement for this board to make a determination that we're exempt from local zoning. And if we violate that and we induce you to move forward with a resolution approving and we don't stand behind that, I think there's an issue with that legally.
I agree. The essence of this in layman's terms, I'll use it, is that the MOU is what helps guide this in the balancing act. So the MOU is something that we're relying on, and therefore, if it is violated, then our decision is predicated on that, would then be called into question and have to be reevaluated. And then it could be an enforcement issue because we maybe technically would have to go back and say we rescind it or something, but once that happens, then it would be out of compliance with the zoning.
Right, I mean, you wouldn't rescind it, you would just say this is not what was exempted and
There
we
you
would
are.
need to conduct an additional review.
That's what I was going to say. Okay.
and then my other question is, and I guess, and I do understand that this really has been an interesting process for me. Normally, you don't ask a planning board to ignore the zoning code and vote for something that's basically illegal. That's the job of the ZBA. And so I guess I'm kind of curious, why you didn't just come and get denied and go to the ZBA that can do that.
Because I think if we did that, we would be failing to take advantage of all the rights that we have. As I mentioned on April 5, the district is legislatively created. It's one of the only districts in the state that was created that way. I provided a copy of the session laws from the state legislature to the town attorney from 1860, 1954, and 1958.
Right. Yep.
So for us to not avail ourselves of this process, I think it would be a mistake. It would be a mistake on my part to not recommend that the client go through this process. They shouldn't be going through a use variance process as a governmental entity. The question is not so much, do we comply or not comply with zoning? It's more, as a distinct and separate governmental entity, are we subject to the zoning rules? So that's what the board's really weighing tonight. And I understand that the project's tied to it, but it's a bit of a different question, so that's why we did it.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for that.
And I'd also add, they would never meet the factors for use variance.
Right.
I'm sorry,
It
I
would be
couldn't hear you.
unobtainable.
Sorry.
Use variances are very hard to obtain,
Is that the one we've only done one
Yes.
before?
Yes.
Okay.
so it would be hard for them to show an economic burden.
Okay, all right. And I do appreciate this process, but, I've grown up in this town, and, the sign code that was created really was created to try to, it takes a long time, but slowly, as everybody is coming back from the economic recession, I think I see signs around the town that we're starting to be branded. You can see all over town that the projects that have gone through, they look really nice. We've done another fire department. We did a police and court facility, neither of which has asked for this or approached that. I drive around the surrounding towns, and I don't see any other fire department that's doing this. I think the argument, I just don't think we need it, and I think it sends the wrong message to the town. I think it can be, your need can be met with with the sign that you have. I read the MOU, and I'm like, okay, I drive by once a day. So you have to choose. So if you're going to put 4 different messages on, which message am I going to see? And I'm thinking, if you want to have a message, if you have something coming up that's important, put the message out there. Then I'm driving by once, I see it, I've got it, I know what's going on. If you have 4 different messages, I see one. So I prefer to see you guys do a campaign to have people opt in, to get text messages from you, to get pushes from Facebook, to do whatever it is that almost everybody else is doing. I just personally don't see a need.
Thank you. Mr. Oliver, comments?
Thank you very much for doing the compromising and working with our board and pursuing the road that you have over 2 years. And me personally, I think it'll be a positive improvement for our community with the way to communicate different things, and you're definitely due for a new sign, so I don't foresee an issue with it. Thank you.
Ms. DiNapoli?
I've been thinking about this since the last meeting. And I guess some of my initial concerns that I do have is as like some of my fellow members up here, is the question of, have you proven beyond a reasonable doubt, or even just met the bar of why we should exempt you from following the sign laws of this town? We were very fortunate today to have our planning board secretary email us the minutes from the April 5th meeting.
Yeah, that was good.
I, who do not work full-time, had the chance to read that, which was a great help to me because it helped solidify some of my questions that I do have. And I think Victoria answered one of them, that if you fail tonight, would you go before the ZBA? And I'm assuming the answer is no. Or am I wrong in assuming that?
I think it's wrong to assume it.
Okay.
But quite frankly, I think the next step would be we'd have to look judicially what our rights are.
So reading through the minutes of what all parties were speaking about on the April 5th meeting, there were a couple of notes that I have and what your arguments were. And one of the reasons that you stated, well, there were three basic reasons that I saw that I looked at that were important. And one was the Amber Alerts, and that your concern was that this community needed to be connected, and I'm quoting you, Mr. Brenner, at this point, this community needed to be connected to other resources that exist out there, and that other communities are connecting to it. So the folks at this district wouldn't have to do anything, that this would be done by the fire district. But it also says that, so without this type of mechanism, the community cannot get this type of information, which implies that we're all walking around in the town of Hyde Park with cotton in our ears and covers over our eyes, and we have absolutely no other outlets to any other form of communication. I know, I'm assuming you did not mean it as strongly as that sounds.
No, and I think taken out of context, we went on for an hour at that public hearing, and to, take one sentence out of context when I circled back and addressed points, I think is a bit unfair.
There was also the issue of the weather, that you needed to be able to do this as a goodwill for the community, to notify them. And that the fire district itself could opt in to have this service. Well, the same service that the fire district would opt in, within 5 minutes of me being on the computer, I could Google, and I too can opt in if I chose to. Which would be far more pertinent to my being aware of impending bad weather than me counting on driving by, looking at that sign that one time. So I would think it would be more important that I, as the consumer, do my due diligence, if this was my concern, is to do this for myself, get texts or get an email. And the last item you had mentioned was the landscaping. And that the beauty of having this digital system is that it would not be treaded on during the summer. I would also think that you could redesign that landscaping so that when you did have to change it manually, you could without ruining, because, I remember the beautiful flowers and everything around it, and that would be lovely to maintain, but you could also do it so that you could do the manual letters and not do the digital. This system that you are thinking of implementing is as old-fashioned as Mr. Davis responding to a fire with a horse-drawn fire truck. Those days are long gone. This relying on digital info is long gone. I would think that as we get even further, even 2 years from now, there are so many other ways of informing the public than to rely on a digital form, on a moving sign. And I would think the fire district would want to be more up to date in their technology than something that has passed them by. I feel the residents of Hyde Park are fairly savvy. For those who want to be informed, they choose the appropriate methods. In your arguments, I saw nothing that brought it up to the level of your reasonings of why the fire district feels that this is so critical for them. I totally agree. They are in desperate need of a new sign. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I can guess that you're probably figuring out that it looks as though we're tied at this point. And we have a resolution prepared that I'm going to read into the record, and then I'm going to ask for a roll call vote so we can see everybody actually is going to vote. Ms. Potter, would you like me to read this in its entirety into the record?
I would start with now, therefore, be it resolved.
Just cut an hour off our time.
Thank you, because even if I can do my Evelyn Wood speed reading, I think it's better just to stipulate that we've all had a chance to read it. I do want to state then for the record that I understand, I see both sides of this issue. I do agree actually that the technology that you're intending to put in here is actually going to be out of date soon, if it's not already out of date. I think that most people who are residents would prefer getting alerts by email or cell or text or Pinterest or whatever else people are using these days, the young folk. But I will note that I've been persuaded by something else that Mr. Brenner brought up. There are two items. One is that there is district-specific information that you'd like to convey, and that this is an appropriate way to do it. The other is that we have been looking at residents of Hyde Park, and we should, because we're the people who live are going to be the ones looking at the sign. But there are also people who don't necessarily live in Hyde Park, but they're visiting, or they may be coming in from neighboring cities who don't know that there's a burn alert or don't know that there are road outages ahead. And for visitors, and we strive to increase our desirability to tourists and visitors, because that's the way we can make money here in town as well. And I think that this is probably the only way to get that information out to them, because those people can't opt in and say, send me a text, send me an alert. They can to say, get Amber Alerts, et cetera, because you can do that through a state system of sign up. But for something local, like a road outage or closure or a power outage someplace, any of those that are emergency information, you wouldn't be able to have it. I know if I were visiting here and thought that I made a plan to go visit one of the historic sites and realized that I couldn't as I got up and didn't really know what was going on, I'd prefer having some bit of knowledge. Is this sign going to necessarily always do that? No, you can't hit 100% every time. But it's one more way in which to inform the public. So that probably tells you how I'll be voting. Resolution determining application of the Town of Hyde Park zoning law to propose internally illuminated sign for Hyde Park Fire and Water District, Resolution 16-032, May 16, 2017. I offer the following and urge its adoption. Whereas, etc., and for the benefit of the public, what we do is, in essence, go through the background of the case, including what's in the proposed memorandum of understanding, that the fire department is voluntarily noted. I should also add, by the way, that for Ann's comment, and this was in my head, you don't have to do 4 signs. You may just have 1 sign that'll be static. If there's 4 signs that you think are relevant, then you can have up to 4 signs, 1 per 15 minutes. And it's a limit of 4. But if there's just 1 emergency alert you want to put out, say that there's a man missing in a car, it would just be static the whole time that way. So, right. Okay. The other issue we go through is a point-by-point issue of the Monroe, the 9 balancing factors in Monroe. So I'll go to the be further resolved. That based on the foregoing, the Planning Board finds that 1, having performed the balancing analysis required by matter of County of Monroe versus City of Rochester, it is in the public interest that the sign regulations in the zoning law of the Town of Hyde Park be followed to the greatest extent practicable, with due consideration of the public service performed by the Hyde Park Fire and Water District. And 2, with respect to the Digital Reader Board, the interests of the Hyde Park Fire and Water District in providing up-to-date information to residents of the town and visitors passing by the proposed sign, including emergency information and district-specific information in accordance with the use restrictions, outweighs the town's interest in having universal compliance with its sign regulations, and in particular the restriction on internally illuminated signage. The Planning Board further finds that the use restrictions mitigate potential safety issues and are an integral part of the Planning Board's balancing analysis. Be it further resolved that the Planning Board of the Town of Hyde Park hereby recommends the zoning administrator grant a sign permit for the proposed sign. Ms. Whitman, can you call the roll?
Do we need a second?
Oh, sorry, is there a second?
Second that motion.
Thank you.
That was Jan.
Yep.
All right. Ms. DiNapoli.
No.
Mr. Oliver.
Yes.
Ms. Dexter.
No.
Mr. Pickett.
Yes.
Mr. Lipp.
Yes.
Kane.
No.
Yes. So, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Even though we're a divided board, we're a loving board. No, what I mean is we respect one another. I certainly respect everyone's opinion, and this was a hard one. That's why I think everyone came down and everyone made very intelligent assessments for why they voted the way they did. additionally. So thank you.
Thank you.
Nothing else from us except to apply for your permit now.
Appreciate it. Thank you all very much.
And thanks for driving down. I know you've been around away from your home for a while, so thanks for joining us tonight.
Okay, I was in Lake Placid last night, so this is
When do you get to go home?
probably not till Friday.
Friday.
Oh.
Yeah.
Lake Placid is a nice place to be. Right now, with this heat, it would be a particularly nice place to be. Thank you again, gentlemen. The next item is a workshop item again. It's Anderson Center for Autism. They're coming back for a site plan amendment. They're seeking approval to erect some storage buildings. This is at 4280 and 4274 Albany Post Road. And I will let the applicants, I'll turn it over to you guys.
Good evening, Mark Day, Day Engineering, Maria Espy, Anderson Center for Autism. Do you mind if I use this?
No, go
Might
right
be
ahead.
easier.
Hopefully it works.
Yeah.
It might already be on.
Oh,
No, here. Let's see.
that's a new one.
This might be brand spanking new, right? There we go. Okay, the red light's on. Yep.
As the chairman mentioned, we are actually here tonight for a site plan amendment. We are proposing a number of different features on the site.
Mr. Day, Mr. I think you should hold it a little bit closer.
Excuse me.
There you go.
Sorry. I'm going to run down basically what we are proposing. Right now we're proposing a elliptical water feature, which will be over here in front of one of the, or three of the residents. That is basically it's a shower, if you will. It's you walk out and water sprays up, and it's basically a water feature that's, it's not a pool, it's basically a system of spray, if you will. That we're proposing, that's basically going to be installed right here, just to the west of the existing pool. The second thing we're asking for is we are going to be developing the area which is where the equipment is currently located. We're going to be relocating 4 storage trailers. One is not in that location. We're going to move it to this location, and there are 3 that are there now that we're going to relocate. Along with that, we're proposing an 84 by 80 foot equipment shed. The purpose of this building is to provide coverage or protection for some of the equipment that's out there. Currently, there's no equipment shed for what they have. They have a backhoe, they have trucks, they have plows and things like that they'd like to put indoors, which obviously will extend the longevity of the equipment and also provide a little more clarity to this area. Now, this is being proposed at the end of the cul-de-sac, which feeds the north end of the campus. The other things we're proposing, we're proposing a 30 by 30 pavilion, which will be near the education center, and that is, it's this type pavilion right here. It's open. This is roughly the colors that are going to be. It's got a hunter green and a sand trim, but it's an open pavilion, which would be situated in the recreation area that's already existing in the center or in between the education center. The other things we're proposing, there's this area here. I don't know if the board remembers years ago. Well, not years ago, but as of last year, the whole campus was served by propane.
Mm-hmm.
So this was a propane tank farm. Right. As of last year, in June, spent a great deal of time with Central Hudson and a whole slew of other people, and basically converted the campus to natural gas, which is fed from Route 9 and basically comes into the campus and is distributed throughout the site. So the tank farm was decommissioned last year. Mr. Westermeyer was involved.
We just want to bring that to the board's attention. We're also proposing an 18 by approximately 24-foot garden deck. That's it's basically a lean-to shed. It's an open air. It's not enclosed at all. It's just a lean-to shed that comes off one of the existing structures. It's this has been on the books for a while, but we've never been installed. Couple things they're doing. We're actually adding some recreation sheds over by, storage sheds over by the recreation. We're adding 3 of them. We're adding 2 to the southeast of the, southwest, sorry, of the recreation area. We're also adding another one that's adjacent to it. Now these type sheds right here, the color is roughly the same. However, the trim will match the existing recreation facility on campus. And basically, that's the extent of what we're proposing for this site plan amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Day. Just of note, first, a reminder to the board that none of these buildings are visible from Route 9 nor from the river. There's a steep outcropping of rock toward the rear. And as you know, when you drive by, even in leaf-off seasons, you can see a little bit of the main I'll call it the main building. That's about it. It's a well-contained site. Also, they are seeking approval. This isn't a master plan, which they already had, but there's a lot going on here, not of which all of it will be undertaken immediately. They may need extensions at some point because the fountain is not fully funded yet. I guess I'll call it the experiential fountain. But they're they're giving us everything they have in mind so they can get started now. Is that the right way to put it, Ms. Espy?
Correct. We have to raise some funds for some of the things and fund through our operating budget.
Yeah. And I'd also, I go by it every day, so does Ms. Moss, but if you go down River Road and go by and take a look at the equipment sitting outside on the Vanderbilt estate, you'll see that the carriage house, which is still a beautiful, gorgeous structure, the view of it's a little bit not enhanced, I'll call it, by the fact that there's the same kind of equipment you're talking about putting indoors, all sitting outside, tractors, backhoes, you name it. And I know it's sometimes a disappointing experience for visitors if they come that way to the Vanderbilt estate first. So I applaud you for getting this all contained into one site. Not only is it better for your equipment, but it's also probably better for the people who live there, work there as well, not to see this kind of unsightly stuff sitting around.
Yeah, currently it's all housed right behind the salt shed.
Yeah.
It's one of our main entrances into the heart of the campus.
Could you speak into the mic?
Yes, sorry. And so it's deteriorating, and we need to be conscientious about, we don't get to purchase this type of equipment often, and so we need to take some provisions to protect them against the elements.
Thank you. Mr. Zataro, any comments?
Yeah, I sent out an email last week with a few comments on it. So back in, I don't remember when it was, 2005, maybe 2006, the planning board had approved a master plan for the site that was done by Rhodey, Soik, and Andrews. So one of my comments was, it looks like we've got an updated, survey now, the campus. So do you know if all the buildings that were part of that previously approved master plan that already have been constructed?
Correct.
Okay, that's what I thought. So, one of the other things I asked for is if we could just get like a table of, the buildings on the site and with like a letter designation or something just as to what they are. And again, we could probably just call that our new site plan / master plan.
In effect,
It takes,
you turned it off. No,
it takes
it's on.
a woman to do that, Mark.
Wait, who's the engineer here?
Yeah, Mark. Mark is there.
See? Yeah.
Well, the light's off. Oh,
Even the expert can't get it going.
Uh-oh. You can walk that one. You can just move that. No.
I don't know what he hit.
Yeah.
No.
it's for the purpose, since we're televised, it's better if you speak into a mic.
We actually did exactly that. We've taken each building on site and we've actually given it a designation, and we've also provided a list of its use and its name.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's the new plan that will be submitted?
Yeah, updated one. And then, you know, I think the only other thing that I commented on is the area by the equipment shed. Maybe just do, like enlarge, you know, like detail that area, because there is going to be, you know, some grading over there, maybe a little, you know, drainage work. So, you know, but other than that, you know, the Anderson School has done a great job up there over the years. You guys really have done a great job there. So, I mean, this is pretty, you know, minor stuff, in my opinion.
No, I agree with you. And yes, you've heard it before. I think I've used the words, you turned what was a Dickensian site into something that's bright, fresh, and airy, and wonderful for the people who are there.
Yeah.
It's hard to believe 5 years have gone by since the completion of the master site plan.
Wow.
Finished in 2012.
Wow.
So.
Yeah, you guys did a great job.
We haven't seen you in that long, so it hasn't been hard for me to remember. I know you had it done. So, Ms. Polidoro, any comments?
If you're not planning on building these all at once, I suggest that we have a conversation with Tad about possibly putting some phasing language on the plan, because otherwise the plan can expire after 2 years.
Okay.
And you'd either have to come back in for approval, or you can hold up the CO for the other structures until everything on the site plan is completed. So if you really don't think that they're all going to be constructed at the same time, let's get the right language on the map.
Within 2 years,
Right.
put it that way.
I'll go back to administration and we'll try to schedule out what.
Yeah, we can put some phasing language on there.
I was going to say, again,
Flexible.
if we don't phase it, then you have the option of just coming back every 2 years and seeking an extension like we did earlier.
Right.
Yeah, you've done that in the past, I know, before too, but we can be more creative with the phasing sort of aspects of this to avoid that.
Right, you could show, you know, one sheet with the things you're going to do now and a second sheet with the future. We can talk about it, so just give us an idea of what your plan is.
We can even do this online if you want to, just through emails. You don't have to come in for a meeting, I think.
Right, we could have a conference call with Tad.
Yeah,
Very good.
great. Let me start to my right. Ms. DiNapoli, any comments?
No comments.
Okay. Chris?
No comments.
Ms. Dexter?
Nice to see you back. The structures you've proposed, of course, look gorgeous. And I'm shocked at the natural gas. I didn't, when did, that was.
When they
there
ran the
was some-
water,
June.
Yeah.
Okay.
Last year.
they followed the same line as the water line, or the same area as the water line.
Did they extend it from River Ridge?
They did.
Extend it.
Okay. I remember seeing all the work there. I thought it was the water line being worked on. So congratulations. I hope that is working out better for you.
Save a lot
Really
of money.
phenomenal that
Right.
project came to
Save a
fruition.
ton of money.
That's great.
Yeah,
Jealous. Mr. Pickett?
no comment.
Mr. Murphy?
Just very nice, and all your other, you know, things that you've taken on have turned out very well, and we're happy you're still going.
Thank you. Ms. Kane?
Just, I want to recognize Anderson School and all the wonderful work you do for those, the residents.
Thank you.
People of many ages. I was going to say children, but they're not all children. And thank you very much for creating such a wonderful space for them.
Thank you.
So we're prepared to type the,
Yep,
yes?
actually, I just had one more thing. There's a bunch of new people on the board, and I'm not sure if everybody's familiar with the site, and I was wondering if we should ask for a site visit, just.
Would love to have.
They love having people come to visit. I know that answer.
Because I haven't seen since,
Happy to take anyone through the campus and
Okay.
show you.
In addition, they're active members of the Hyde Park Chamber of Commerce, and at least once a year, they host a breakfast, I believe, at the site. I was away when you did one, I think, 6 weeks ago or so.
Yeah, for autism awareness.
Yeah, for the Autism Awareness Month, they have one there. So we'll go ahead and send some dates around and send them over to you to see if we can get a site visit. And by the way, it's really fun. I sound really like a nerd, but it is fun to go look because, and if you had seen what it used to look like, it really is You need the before and the after pictures there to really get a sense and a flavor of what that they've accomplished on that site. So we do have a resolution ready to go tonight, so we have to refer this to county planning under 239M because they're on a state road. And then I think we should also go ahead and probably set the public hearing for 30 days from now. That will give county planning time to make its response. Okay. We can open it for the public and then get you going. Who has this resolution?
I do.
Ann does, yes.
Town of Hyde Park Planning Board, resolution typing action and referring the application to the Dutchess County Department of Planning and Development for Anderson Center for Autism, storage sheds, water feature, and pavilion, May 17, 2017, resolution number 2017-17. Whereas, now therefore be it resolved that the planning board hereby classifies the project as a type 1 action. 2, declares itself lead agency as it is the only involved agency. 3, directs its secretary to refer the application to the Dutchess County Department of Planning and Development pursuant to Section 239M of the General Municipal Law. 4, directs its secretary to refer the application to the town of Esopus for comment pursuant to Section 239NN of the General Municipal Law, along with a copy of the public hearing notice. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The motion carries unanimously. And may I get a motion to set the public hearing for June the 21st, I believe that would be?
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. We'll see you guys then. Thank you. Thanks for the nice presentation. And I'll get, once I have some dates in line from the board, the newer members, and we'll send you up and set something up. And I'll try to go too, because I haven't been in a couple of years. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is a site plan waiver for Kian Chen. I hope I'm saying that correctly. The applicants are basically just seeking to reduce some siding, windows, air conditioning, a pool fence. They're located at 18 Scenic Drive, which is in the scenic area of statewide significance. Again, this is not visible from any of the historic sites or from the river, and we have a recommendation from our zoning administrator. Who has this file? Or any discussion first? Who has this file?
I do.
Thank you, Chris.
Site plan waiver for 18 Scenic Drive, resolution number 2017-21, whereas a request for site plan waiver has been made to the Town of Hyde Park Planning Board by Kian Chen for minor changes on the property associated with single-family home requiring a building permit. And whereas, therefore be resolved that Town Hyde Park Planning Board hereby waives site plan requirements for the proposed changes as described in the request to the Planning Board dated May 10, 2017. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The motion carries. I want to point out that in this case, we were able to see what they're proposing exactly. We had elevations, et cetera. Next item on the agenda is another request for a site plan waiver. This one is located at 17 Main Street, just up the road, and it's to repair a barn. Would you be Mr. Van Wagner? Come on up and let's discuss this. So can you we had a kind of vague description from Ms. Moss. It just said you're going to tear down the back 14 feet and put up plywood. That's all that was said. So can you go into more detail about what you want to do?
Well, eventually I want to rebuild the section that I'm tearing down
Okay.
on the same footprint, basically.
Okay. So you're aware that that's what's under our code, that would be a prior non-conforming structure because it's within the setback. So once you reduce the footprint, that portion, after a year, if it's not used or rebuilt within that time, will become no longer, you won't be able to rebuild it unless you get a variance from the ZBA. Just want to make sure you're aware of that.
But if I do it within a year.
Within the year, then you still have,
build on
right.
the footprint.
So if we were kind of rushing through it, but the building that burnt, that there's a small lot that has the two-family residences on it. There's the density way exceeds what's allowed. The reason why we were trying to help them work with them is because if they didn't begin to rebuild it within the year, then he couldn't rebuild it without getting a variance from the ZBA as well. So you have 12 months, in other words, from the time you demolish it. And I think that Tad has you here before us for a site plan waiver because you're going to put some new wall in the back of it.
Well, just to secure it and keep it from kind of racking
Right.
on the side. And
So-
we're going to rack it back, and then the plywood will hold it.
Yeah, I haven't gone back. It's on private property. I didn't want to invade. Are you going to paint the plywood or just, is it just leaving it up?
Hopefully, it's going to be temporary. I mean, I guess we could paint it.
I'm just thinking of the neighbors, what they would like to see.
What I'm doing is better than what's there.
I haven't seen it. That may be.
Well, I thought you might have had pictures. Tad, I had sent Tad
No.
an email with pictures.
Yeah.
They're in the
I
file
didn't
as
see
well,
them.
but they were emailed.
Is
Okay.
it dangerous a little, that back 14 feet? Is it?
What's that?
How unstable is it? I saw the pictures and it was.
Oh, you did it? The back corner's pretty rotted. I mean, when
Yeah.
you go in the barn, it drops probably 2 feet to the back. I mean, I do have some copies of the pictures if you want to take a quick look.
Oh, I trust you. I may have overlooked that. I mean, or maybe I was in Los Angeles and having a very hard time with my internet the first 2 days.
It's kind of obvious what in the back section, you can kind of see where the ridge is broken. At some point in time, this was added on, and this is the original part of the barn, which is still straight.
Looks like
But
this may have
back
been added on
corner
for horses or something.
is kind of, yeah, exactly.
Is this board and batten style? I can't see it in the black and white. It looks like, yeah, of course it is.
And this is the back corner where, I mean, you can see that it's all just collapsed. And,
Okay.
And basically boards are popping off.
And so you are aware that when you want to rebuild, you'll have to come back for the site plan waiver
Right.
before you build? Okay, just want to make sure you're aware
Well,
about
I'm
that.
just trying to secure it.
Yeah, no.
I've got kids running around.
Gotcha.
there
You just got a
now,
bunch of
but
little kids that are running around there.
Anybody
I'm
else?
kind of nervous. I kind of inherited this, and it's not really something, you know, I've been nervous about it for the last three years.
Got it. Okay. Ms. Dexter remembers going to high school with your sister.
Yes, Mary.
Oh, okay.
So is that your sister that's on the application, your co-owner?
No, that's my mother, actually.
Aha.
Ah.
That's why. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, and, well, she's not really capable of handling the affairs anymore, so that's kind of why it's gotten to the point where it is.
It's yours now.
Yeah, you inherited the problem. Anybody else have any other questions? I just needed some clarification there because as I said, I wasn't sure what you were intending on doing. I kind of have a better idea now. Who has this file?
I do.
Thank you.
So, resolution, resolution 2017-22, whereas, therefore be it resolved that the Town of Hyde Park Planning Board hereby waives site plan requirements for the proposed changes as described in the request to the Planning Board dated May 12, 2017 by Mary Van Wagner and Kyle Van Wagner.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any abstain or nays? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Good luck on this.
Thank you.
And we may see you back here shortly.
Yeah, I hope
Hopefully.
so.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thanks.
The next application is another request for site plan waiver. This is actually just to remove a window, but it's located at 32 Mulford Avenue, which is also in a statewide area of scenic area of statewide significance. We have the recommendation from the zoning administrator, and this is not visible from the historic site or from the river over on that side. So who has this file?
I do. Site plan waiver, Town Code Section 108-9.4C2, Resolution Number 2017-23. Whereas, therefore be it resolved that the Town of Hyde Park Planning Board hereby waives site plan requirements for the proposed changes as described in the request to the Planning Board dated May 16th, 2017.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. The last item on the agenda is a release of escrow. This is Resolution 17-F. And without going into too many of them, this basically will send over, Emergency One requested that all escrow remaining be sent back. We're also sending back from the original Gomes. We have a new application, if you recall, on that one. The Hyde Park Assisted Living Facility is done. Kittivis, there's only $30 left. Hyde Park Truck and Auto, Page Plaza Healthcare, and Tamilia Salon Canvas. I noticed that the attorney is back in here.
No, it should be off. It's the resolution. This is,
So,
Not on the resolution.
okay, it was on my,
it's on the agenda, not the resolution.
you're right, it's on the resolution. Thank you. This is what's gone. So, I'm moving that we recommend to the town board they return all the escrow as attached in the chart that you all have in front of you. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And Megan, a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, and thank you, Video Ventures, for televising us tonight.
I got a question for you on, right of comment. I submitted the,